Have you ever met someone whose story just completely changes your perspective on life? Well, today I want to tell you about a man I met named Kamal. His story isn't about fame or fortune, but about something much more profound. The quiet, unwavering power of human resilience. I first saw Kamal at a bustling local market. He was sitting on a small wooden stool, surrounded by an array of handcrafted leather goods. Bags, wallets, belts, each piece intricately tooled with patterns that seemed to tell a story of their own. He wasn't loud or pushy like some of the other vendors. He just sat there, a gentle smile on his face, his hands moving with a practiced grace as he worked on a new piece. I was drawn in by the quality of his work. I picked up a wallet, feeling the supple leather and tracing the detailed designs. "This is beautiful," I said. He looked up, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Thank you," he replied, his voice soft but clear. "Each one is a piece of my heart." That's how our conversation started. And over the next few weeks, I kept finding excuses to go back to that market. Not just to admire his craft, but to listen to his story. Kamal, I learned, wasn't always a leather artisan. In fact, his life had taken a path he could never have imagined. He was born in a small, remote village, a place where the rhythm of life was dictated by the seasons. His family were farmers, and from a young age, Kamal worked the land alongside his father. He spoke of his childhood with a fondness that was almost tangible. He described the smell of the earth after the first rain, the taste of mangoes plucked fresh from the tree, and the sound of his mother's laughter filling their small home. He had simple dreams: to take over the family farm, marry his childhood sweetheart, and raise a family of his own. But life, as it often does, had other plans. When Kamal was in his late teens, a severe drought hit his region. For 3 consecutive years, the rains failed. The vibrant green fields of his memory turned to dust. The river that had been the lifeblood of his village shrank to a muddy trickle. Hope began to wither along with the crops. His family, like many others, lost everything. The farm that had been in their family for generations could no longer sustain them. With heavy hearts, they made the difficult decision to leave their home and move to the city in search of work. For Kamal, it was like being uprooted from the only soil he had ever known. The city was a shock to his system. It was a cacophony of noise, a blur of motion, a world away from the tranquil village he loved. He, his father, and his brothers took on any work they could find, mostly grueling manual labor at construction sites. The pay was meager, and the work was bone-breaking. Days were long and nights were spent in a cramped single room shared with several other families. Kamal told me about this period with a quiet solemnity, not with self-pity, but with a raw honesty that was heartbreaking. He spoke of the feeling of invisibility, of being just another faceless laborer in a city that didn't seem to care. The dream of the farm, of his old life, felt like a distant, fading star. He confessed that there were times when despair was a constant companion, when it was hard to see a way forward. One day, while walking through a crowded lane, he stumbled upon a small, dusty shop tucked away in a corner. Inside, an old man was hunched over a workbench, meticulously stitching a piece of leather. It was a shoemaker's shop. Kamal stood there, mesmerized. He had never seen anything like it. The way the old man's hands moved with such precision and care, transforming a simple piece of hide into something beautiful and useful. It was like watching a magician at work. He found himself returning to that shop every day after his work at the construction site, just to watch. He never said a word, just observed from the doorway. After about a week, the old shoemaker, whose name was Mr. Gupta, looked up and beckoned him inside. "You've been watching," he said, not unkindly. "You're interested." Kamal, shy and intimidated, simply nodded. That nod was the beginning of a new chapter. Mr. Gupta, seeing a spark in the young man's eyes, took him under his wing. He started teaching Kamal the art of leatherwork. He taught him how to select the right hides, how to cut and shape them, how to tool intricate designs, and how to stitch with a strength that would last a lifetime. Kamal's hands, calloused and sore from construction work, were clumsy at first. He made mistakes. He ruined pieces of leather. But for the first time since leaving his village, he felt a flicker of purpose. He poured all his energy, all his focus, into learning the craft. Mr. Gupta was a patient teacher, a mentor who taught him not just a skill, but a philosophy. This is not just about making things, the old man would say. It's about putting your soul into your work. It's about creating something that has a story, something that will be part of someone else's journey. For years, Kamal worked a double life. By day, he hauled bricks and mixed cement. By night, he sat with Mr. Gupta, learning the secrets of leather. He saved every spare penny he earned. Slowly, painstakingly, he bought his own tools, one piece at a time. He started making small items, keychains, then wallets, then belts. When Mr. Gupta eventually passed away, he left his small collection of tools to Kamal. It was, Kamal told me, the greatest inheritance he could have ever received. With his mentor gone, Kamal knew it was time to forge his own path. He took a leap of faith. He quit his construction job and used his meager savings to buy a small batch of leather. He set up his spot in the market, the very one where I met him, with just a handful of wallets and a heart full of both fear and hope. The first few weeks were incredibly tough. He was competing with established vendors, and his small display was easy to overlook. There were days he didn't make a single sale, days when the old despair threatened to creep back in. He'd pack up his unsold goods, his shoulders heavy, and wonder if he'd made a terrible mistake. But he remembered Mr. Gupta's words. He remembered the feeling of the leather in his hands, the satisfaction of a perfect stitch. He refused to give up. He focused on his craft, making each piece better than the last. He didn't just sell products, he shared his passion. When people stopped to look, he would tell them about the leather, about the design, about the time and care that went into it. Slowly, people started to notice. They recognized the quality, the love, the story embedded in each item. A customer who bought a wallet would come back a month later for a belt. They'd bring their friends. Word of the quiet man with the magic hands began to spread. Today, Kamal's small stall is a fixture in the market. He's not rich, not by a long shot, but he earns enough to live a simple, dignified life. He was able to move his family into a better home. He even revisited his village, not to stay, but to see the land he still loved. He told me that looking at the now recovering fields, he realized that he wasn't that boy with simple dreams anymore. Life had taken him on a detour, a hard and painful one. But it had also led him to a new passion, a new purpose. Kamal's story isn't a fairy tale. It's a story of grit. It's about finding light in the darkest of times, about the power of a single spark of interest to ignite a new life. It's about how a mentor can change a person's entire trajectory. He transformed his hardship not into bitterness, but into his art. The lines on his leatherwork are like the lines on his face. Each one tells a story of a journey, of survival, of quiet triumph. The last time I saw him, I bought a journal with a beautifully crafted leather cover. As he handed it to me, he smiled that same gentle smile. "Now you can write your own story," he said. And I think that's the real lesson from Kamal. No matter what path life puts you on, no matter how many times you get knocked down, you always have the power to pick up the tools you've been given and start crafting a new story for yourself. Thanks for listening to Kamal's journey with me today. Stories like his are all around us if we just take a moment to look. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking the video and subscribing for more stories. See you next time.